up and down. I get a little anxious when I think that I'm supposed to be, talking to somebody, and then I get not so much anxious. I think it brings back a lot of memories and stuff. So I tend to get a little emotional in certain aspects. Maybe today will be a good day. Who knows?
Well, and those emotions are legit, and don't worry if they come up. I definitely recognize those, and I know that's part of the process, so not a problem. So yeah, so thank you. I think I have 45 minutes on Zoom, so we'll just keep it to that. And I know
Sure.
you've got things going on too. So great. Well, if we could jump in.
Sure.
So thank you so much for being here. And first of all, I'm so sorry that you are being given this platform and for the loss that you have endured. And I just want to say, yeah, I'm really sorry for that. This is part of your story.
Thank you.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about Madison?
Sure. Um, so Madison, I grew up in the Annapolis Valley in rural Nova Scotia. Beautiful place.
I've been
I
there.
raised my, yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah.
The kids were, Madison was 10 years old. Her little sister was 5 when I felt that I had met pretty much the love of my life at that
Mm,
time. So I packed up my belongings and we moved to Yarmouth, which is southwest Nova Scotia.
mhm,
Madison, I think for me, the biggest thing with the human trafficking is that there's a lot of stigma attached to which girls get caught up in human trafficking,
mm,
and what their lifestyle is. Maybe
mhm,
they come from broken homes that are maybe single moms, single dads,
mhm,
kids that are falling through the cracks, kids that are in foster care, vulnerable youth,
mm,
basically. Which I mean, and I also tell everybody that, I was aware human trafficking existed, but a lot of people, I feel like they tend to have the attitude that, if it doesn't directly affect them, then it doesn't exist.
mm,
And I was probably guilty of that myself, but it wasn't something I educated my girls on. And I had 3 girls in my house, and
mm,
then Madison had a little girl. So, you know, it's kind of hard to imagine that you don't really believe that this could happen to you or that it's a thing until it actually directly affects you. So that's the first thing I think I really want people to understand. We were I'm going to say middle class family. My partner was a fisherman. I was blessed to be able to stay home and just
mhm,
raise the kids.
mhm,
We became a blended family when we moved in together. Madison was 10, her sister Tori was 5, my stepdaughter was 8, and my stepson was 13. So that was a big adjustment going from 2 girls to a full family of, 4 kids. So they were very active. We
mm,
traveled quite a bit. We took the kids to Disney World. We had a trailer. We went camping on the weekends. We traveled
mhm,
Nova Scotia. We,
mhm,
did 4x4 rallies.
mhm,
Madison was
mm,
a rugby player. She was a hockey player. She was a French immersion student. Um,
mm.
I boxed for 13 years as an
Wow.
amateur. And then when I moved to Yarmouth, I opened my own boxing club. Madison was my
Mm,
star athlete. She was a 2-time
mm.
Canadian national boxing champion. So,
Wow.
she had the potential to, I mean, I toot her horn a lot. She probably could have been an Olympic athlete had she had stayed
Mm,
focused and wanted to do that with her life. So she
mm,
wasn't the typical girl that anybody would be, thinking that this was going to happen to her. But
mm,
when we moved to Yarmouth, she was pretty feisty. I think there's a big part of me that believes, Madison was hot-headed, stubborn, a little sassy, and I feel
mhm,
like those are all qualities that I,
mm.
kind of passed off to her. And I think that, sometimes I thought they weren't so great. And then other times I believe, those are the qualities that kept her alive as long as she stayed alive, while she was involved in the game.
Mm,
So she met a boy when we were in Yarmouth. She kind of started to go a little bit sideways, met a boyfriend. I knew he was a little bit on the troubled side, but I
mm,
believe you should give everybody a second chance. And I thought,
mm,
we're a good family. Maybe that will
mhm,
help him out a little bit. you know?
Mm, mhm,
Um, I think that was
mm,
the first
mm,
incident where I realized there was a boyfriend in her life that was trying to exercise control over, what she
mhm,
did, where she went, who she talked to.
mm,
So the first time I realized that that was becoming a problem, I actually did go to the local authorities and let them know my concerns because he had actually put his hands on Madison. He had
mm,
broken her phone.
mm,
I found out after Madison passed away because I sort of went, rogue
mhm,
mom investigator mode, trying to
mhm.
find out what was happening with her. And I did find out that this young man's father was living in Calgary and he was actually a pimp and had been a pimp for quite some time. So knowing
Wow.
what I know now, I believe that that's probably where the initial seed was planted.
Gee.
Um, Madison loved to have fun. I mean, she was a party girl through and through. She didn't have a drinking problem. She didn't have a drug problem. But I'd be lying if I said, she didn't
Mhm,
like to go smoke a little bit of weed or have
mhm,
drinks with her friends. Like she was a typical teenage girl.
mhm, mhm,
In
mm,
2011, she
mm,
wound up pregnant,
mhm,
not with the boy that I found was trouble because they had parted ways, but she had had a new boyfriend for a substantial amount of time.
mhm,
Um, when she found out she was pregnant, they came to me right away. And
mm,
to be very honest, I'd always instilled in my children that abortion was not a means of birth control because I
mm,
was adopted at 3 months old.
mm,
And I told her,
mhm,
whatever you're feeling, we'll
mhm,
navigate this. If you want to
mm,
keep the baby, I'm 100% supportive. If you don't, I'm 100% supportive,
mhm,
except for the fact that I don't agree that you should terminate the pregnancy
mm.
just because.
Yeah.
So the boy that she was with actually ended up not being the father, which
Mm,
was perfectly fine. But
mhm,
he had made a promise to Madison he would stay with her and
mhm,
raise the baby. And he was there for about the
mhm,
first 6 months or so of
mhm,
the baby's life. But then
mhm,
a small town, lots of
mm,
talk, people saying not
mm,
your child. So he
mm.
did have a DNA test and it was proven that he was not the father. So he
Okay.
just kind of went his own way, which I suspected would happen. And then
Mm,
months after that, Madison decided that, she came to me and said, I think I'm going to go out west. So of
mm,
course I was devastated because
mhm,
I didn't want her to leave and I certainly didn't want her to take the baby.
mhm,
The girl that she was going out west with,
mhm.
not to go into too much detail, but she was just an individual that Madison was spending a lot of time with that I didn't approve of at all. It
Okay.
was a relationship of convenience with respect
Mm,
to Madison looking after her son.
mm,
And it was also, I think it was just the beginning of the end because Madison
mm,
ended up dropping out of school. She ended up spending a lot of time at this girl's house. She was
mm,
babysitting for her. She was
mm.
being enabled to drink and do drugs. This was before
Mm,
Callie came along.
okay.
I wasn't happy about her spending
Mhm,
time with this particular girl at
mhm,
all. She kind of pulled herself away from her. But then when she decided she was going to move out west, I said, well, who are you going out there with? And it was the girl that I really didn't approve of. She had a
mm,
new boyfriend, she had a new baby,
mhm,
and they were just going to pack up and move. And I
mhm.
said, well, why do you want to move out west? And she said,
Yeah.
well, because I just want to try to find a good job, make more money.
Mm,
I just want to do something better for myself.
mm,
So she ended up moving to Grand Prairie
mm,
in, I think it was the summer of 2012,
mhm,
late summer of 2012. Callie May had
mhm,
just turned a year old.
mhm,
And I wasn't happy with her being out there. Madison said, why don't you just come out and see where I'm living, just see how I'm making out. Then maybe that
mhm.
will put your mind at ease. And I said, okay.
Yeah.
I hopped on the plane and I went to Grand Prairie and everything seemed to be really good. I mean, the house was warm and it
Mm,
was freezing cold there, but
yeah.
the house was warm. The fridge
Mhm,
was full of food. The cupboards were full
mm,
of food. The kids
mhm,
seemed to be doing really good. So I
mhm,
was happy that everything was okay, but she didn't have a job and she was staying home looking after the kids. I didn't really like that for her because Madison had a lot of potential.
mhm,
So we ended up going out just kind of job hunting randomly one day, and she did end up finding a job. I think she only kept it and got it, like obtained the job, maybe just to appease me, to be like, okay, well, mom thinks I should have a job, so I'm gonna go get a job. Because as soon as I left, I'm pretty sure she quit. Um, I was content when I left, and then I think we would keep in touch often My girls and I are very close. It was always FaceTime. It was always just, telephone calls, texting every day. Good morning, I love you. Good night, I love
Mm,
you. All that
nice.
stuff. And then one day I received an email, and if I can show you, I think I can
Mm,
show you this picture.
mm,
I received an email, and I was appalled when I got the email because I really couldn't imagine who would send me the picture. And I
mm,
looked at it and I said, why would somebody send that picture to me?
mm,
And I looked at it and I kept looking at it. And then
mm,
I read underneath, and it was basically like, Madison is in a lot of trouble and I'm really concerned about her. And this is the picture
mm.
that I had received.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, no.
So when
Uh,
I saw that, it
oh,
took me, I'm going to say, 5 minutes before I actually realized that it was my
mm,
child. I was
oh,
disgusted that someone had sent
mm,
that to me, not knowing who it was. And then I realized who it was.
mm,
So I reached out to
mm,
Madison and I asked
mm,
her, I said, what's going on?
mm,
And she told me that she
mm,
had her hair up under a ball hat, was wearing some sweats, and she was at a New Year's Eve party, and a couple of guys thought that she was some guy they were looking for, and they jumped her from behind and they beat her up.
oh,
And I'm like, if you're going to lie to me, you need to do a little bit better than that. Like, I don't buy this at all. Like,
mm,
first of all, she was beautiful.
mm-hmm.
Um, and
She
I
is.
can probably just show you a picture. She was
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
Yes.
And not only that, I told her, I said, there's no way in heck that you would ever actually look like a man, even if if you had your hair up in a ponytail,
Yeah.
in a bun, under a hat, whatever. There's no possible way.
Right.
So just so you can see. So this is Madison.
Yeah. She's beautiful.
I just said there's no possible way that you would be mistaken for a man. And I said, I don't buy it. What's going on?
Mm,
She didn't come clean with me, and I had to be really careful with my actions because at that time she still had Callie with her, and I didn't know what was happening. And then the next thing you know, I got a message from one of her other school friends that said, I don't really want to be the one to tell you this. I don't know how these girls found these things. It's probably just chatter, but they
yeah.
figured it out and they sent me screenshots of her
Mm,
ads on Backpage.
mm,
And somebody might have looked at it
mm,
initially and thought, who is this? Who is this? And now that's not her. But when you carry a child for 9 months, you raise that
yeah.
baby for 18,
Mm,
19 years, like it's your
mm,
child.
mm,
You just know.
yeah.
So the ads were advertising her for sexual services
Mm,
and out calls, in calls. I was
mm,
mortified when I saw it, so
mm,
immediately messaged her, and
yeah.
I said, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
In But not probably quite that nicely.
Yeah.
Um, she basically said that it was none of my business and that she
Mm,
wasn't going to talk about it. And just,
mm,
I don't remember a lot of the conversation, but I know that I got really upset with her and I tried to, be the mom kind of thing. And
mhm,
then when realized after two,
mm,
three times that she was just going to shut me down if I tried
mm,
to, I said, you need to get your shit together. You're a mom. You've got a child out there.
mhm,
Like, what are you
mhm,
thinking? What's
mhm.
going on? Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
So the first time, the picture that I showed you of her getting beat up,
Mm,
that was about probably, I'm going to say maybe 24 to 48 hours after she had been beaten up. And she was beaten up by a guy that was supposed to be her boyfriend, who I've since found out was part of North Preston's Finest from here in Halifax.
mm,
Um, he was not a nice person. I've learned a lot about who he was and
mm,
what he did. And that's just how he handled Madison. In that particular photo, he had broken her jaw on the right
mm,
side of her face. And the
mm.
doctor told her that if she would have taken one more blow to the face, that she would be 6 feet under, not sitting there having her face fixed.
Aw,
So
mm,
um, I still don't understand. There's a lot of, I tell everyone this is like a huge puzzle to me, and there's a lot of
mm,
things that I just probably don't know and probably will never know, but I keep trying to find out. And sometimes I am able to piece it together, and then
mm,
other times I'm like, I'm never going to find this particular piece.
Right.
I was getting bills from the hospital in Edmonton in upwards of $5,000 because of the things that she had done. And then
Huh.
all of a sudden, one day they just stopped coming.
Huh.
So somebody had paid the bill.
Huh.
So I believe that there's a lot of paper trail that we could probably find out who she was involved with, but it's just
Wow.
everybody is tight-lipped and they
Mm.
just don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it, or it's not my business.
Huh.
Um, so anyway, when I continued to kind of scold her, mother her, whatever, and then I realized that she was going to cut me out. And if I actually just simply accepted what she was doing, then she would talk to me.
Mhm.
So I had to play the game. I had to pretend I was
Mm.
okay with it and
Oh.
that I was,
Mm.
I'm gonna, I'm gonna be there for you. If you need
Mhm.
me, call me. So we
Yeah.
basically, it was just like, please call me in the morning. Please call me at night before you go to bed, or text me, let me know you're okay.
Wow.
Um, one particular day, I don't actually remember exactly when it was. I sent her a message and I actually asked her, I said, "Are you okay?"
Mhm.
She said, "No, I'm not okay. And you need to come and get Callie before somebody else takes her."
Mm.
And I said, "I'll be on a plane tomorrow if
Mm.
you're serious." And she goes, "Mom, like, I need you to come and pick her up."
Mm.
So my cousin, who
Mm.
was like a little sister to me, was at the time living in Ottawa, and I kept in touch with her a lot. She was really close with Madison ever since Madison was a baby, and they maintained a very close relationship as adults. Um, so I was telling her what my plan and my intentions were, and she said, "You can't go there by yourself." She said, like, this is, you don't know who you're dealing with. These people are dangerous. And she said, "I'm going to hop on the plane and I'll fly to Edmonton. I'll drive to Grand Prairie. I'll meet you there."
Great.
So I said, "Okay, that sounds good to me." We booked a hotel. I got on the plane. I got delayed in Calgary for 2 or 3 hours and was
Mm.
texting back and forth with my cousin. And she was in Grand Prairie and couldn't find Madison and couldn't find the baby. Madison
Mm.
wasn't answering any of her text messages. And
Mm.
I'm just a bundle of nerves and
No
sitting here
kidding.
trying to, knowing that I'm going to get in the air and then I'm not going to have no contact with
Uh.
anybody. So finally, she messages me and she says, "I managed to find Madison." And she said, "I have her with me now, but Madison doesn't know where Callie is."
Oh.
And of course, my mother's reaction was, "How the hell do you not know where your child is? Like, where is
Mm.
my granddaughter?"
Mm. Mm.
So
Mm.
basically what happened, from what I believe and what I know now actually happened, was that Madison was living in a house with different individuals, not the man that originally beat her up. She had gotten away from him. I actually think he went to jail. She was wrapped up with a couple of other individuals. I think they got evicted from the house they were staying in. One of Madison's friends that was living in that house was actually, I believe, somewhat responsible for looking after Callie. Don't know this for fact, but I'm just kind of, based on who I know that's involved. I think they got evicted from the property, and then Madison didn't know what she was going to do. I think she knew, I can take care of myself,
Mhm.
but I can't be not having a roof over my head and tote this toddler along with me, because at the time Callie was only 22 months old.
Mm.
So she found this random lady on Kijiji in Calgary that worked as a nanny, and Madison reached out to her and said, "I need someone to babysit my daughter for me." The woman agreed. It was $50 a day for childcare. Madison dropped her off with just a diaper bag with very few things in it, and she left Callie there for 11 days.
Mm.
So
Wow.
she didn't remember where Callie was. And then finally, I don't know how, I don't know the story as to how they figured it out, but they found her. When they got there, the woman that was taking care of Callie didn't want to let her go because Madison owed her a substantial amount of money.
Mm.
And so my cousin went to the bank. She took a $500 deposit off her credit card. She went back, she gave it
Mm.
to her. She said, "Please accept this money.
Mm.
Um, and I promise you, we're
Mhm.
good people. We'll make sure you have the rest of the funds before we leave Alberta." And so
Mm.
Maria, the woman, a little reluctantly, but she let her go.
Good.
Um, Maria and I have had left, and I basically told her that I promised that I would make sure she got her money. But I said to her, why did you not call CPS? Why did you not call the authorities and report that you had this child?
Right.
And she just simply said, because I knew she was special and I knew somebody was going to come for her. And I found that to be so strange, but at the same time, I'm so blessed that she kept her, because if she would have turned her over to the authorities in Edmonton, at that time, there was no paperwork. Madison was from Nova Scotia, living in
Mhm.
Edmonton. There was nothing that
Mhm.
tied myself to Callie
Mhm.
Mae, and I'm pretty sure
Mhm.
she would have been lost in the system, and I don't think I ever would have gotten her back.
Right.
So I believe that Maria is Callie Mae's guardian angel. Like, we still keep
Mm.
in touch to this day,
Wow.
often.
Wow.
And I told her that when Callie when Callie's old enough to understand everything, I said, we'll meet, and you'll meet
Mhm.
her
Mm.
as a young teenager, I'm sure, a young woman, but you'll meet her.
Yeah.
I feel like I owe her so much because of the
Mm.
fact that she didn't call anybody, but she knew.
Right.
I mean, Callie had no food, no diapers. Callie's biracial. She had special needs for her hair, for
Mm.
her skin. I mean, this woman legitimately looked after her like she was her own child. And
Wow.
I will be forever grateful to her for that. Um,
Amazing.
when when my cousin picked up Madison and Callie, and they brought her back to the hotel,
Mm.
uh, seeing Callie, it was really difficult for me.
Mm.
Callie was such a happy little baby, and
Mm.
I could see great changes in her personality, and I was really blown away by that. I was really upset, and having a difficult time dealing. Madison was exhausted. She pretty much slept and ate the entire time that we were together. She was definitely different. She wasn't the same. Madison was the type of kid that you could lay on the bed and snuggle and carry on. She was always jovial. And I just knew that she just wasn't the same. And
Mm. Mm.
at that time, not knowing,
Mhm.
what she had actually been through, everything she'd endured. So
Mhm.
she made a comment and said that her friends were bringing her things. And I said, what are they bringing? She goes, well, I need clothes and stuff like that. Now the whole being evicted makes sense to me, because when these two individuals showed up at the hotel room, they had one of the gold trolleys from the hotel, and it was just loaded from bottom to top, full of stuff. Madison's
Mm.
things, suitcases, boxes, bags, garbage bags, everything in it was smelled like dirt and cigarette smoke. Callie's toys and her clothes were chewed, like I would say big dog chewed up.
Mm.
Um, it was heartbreaking to me to see that her things were,
Mhm.
so disheveled and dirty.
Mhm.
Um, the two men came into the hotel room, young men, which we had previously, we had a window that looked out over the parking lot, and it just so happened, oddly enough, that I was looking out the window and legitimately watched them do a drug deal in the parking lot before they came in the hotel, at that moment
Wow.
not knowing that they were coming in the hotel to bring
Right.
my child's things. But when they showed up at the door, I was just kind of blown away that I had just seen them in the parking lot, and knew what I knew. Um, so they brought all of her things in. They didn't stay very long. We had a few words. One of them seemed very, very kind of mellow and laid back. His name was Eddie. The other guy was a pompous piece of shit. Like, he was big feeling, like a really narcissistic, arrogant personality. And it grossed me out. The minute I saw him, I could feel his energy.
Yeah.
It all makes sense to me now why I felt that way, because I now know quite a bit about him.
Mm.
Um, so I went there with the hope that Madison would hop on the plane and come home with me, but she
Mhm.
didn't.
Mm.
And my
Mm.
cousin told me that she showed up at the airport, after Callie and I left. She showed up at the hotel and asked my cousin to take her to the airport solely so that she could watch the plane take off. She didn't want to watch me leave. She didn't want to say
Oh,
goodbye to me. She didn't want to say goodbye to Callie.
too
And
hard.
so she never did. So it was difficult for her. I believe, I believe that her putting her on the plane and putting her with Maria was probably two of the hardest things that she ever had to do.
Mm.
Um, but I also believe that she did that with her child's best interest at heart, that she knew
Totally.
it was going to be the best thing
Mhm.
for her little
Mhm.
girl was to just get her out of there.
For
I
sure.
don't understand why she wouldn't have just come home
I
herself.
know.
Um, but she stayed for quite some time after that. That was Mother's Day weekend of 2013. And oddly enough, it was the only Mother's Day that the three of us ever spent together.
Mm.
Um, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
No, that's
So
fine. Mm.
um so I took Callie home and just tried to make the best of her life with us. It was also new to her. Her
Mm.
father, who is an amazing human, came
Mm.
into her life, her real dad. We
Wow.
have an incredible relationship now, and we have shared custody of her as like
Wow.
even today, which is great.
Great. Yeah.
Um, she's doing really well. She just turned 12 in July. She's completely
Wow.
bilingual.
Mm.
She's active in school. Like she's just a super great kid and possesses like all of her mother's qualities, like good, bad, and otherwise. So she's turned out to be a pretty amazing kid.
Awesome.
Um, in 2014, Madison came back home
Mm.
surprisingly for a little while, but it was really hard for me because she just randomly messaged and said, I'm coming home for a visit. And at that time, my partner didn't want her in the house because,
Mm.
of course, when you're in that lifestyle, you lie, you cheat, you steal. It becomes a way of life for you. And that's just who you become. It wasn't who Madison was, but that's what was happening with her. He didn't want her to be at home. He traveled quite a bit too, even like without me, and he didn't want her in the house if he wasn't around. He didn't even want her there when he was there, but for me to bring her there when he wasn't home was just not going to happen.
Mhm.
So Madison got really shitty with me over that.
Mm.
Um, I also had some really serious reservations about her seeing Callie because I didn't know if she
Mm.
was going to stay home or not. And I didn't want Callie to get reattached and then have her mother pull her away again.
Right.
So I struggled with that. And I
Yeah.
think that hurt Madison, but I had to make those decisions as much
Mhm.
as I didn't want to. I had to do it for Callie's, sake.
Yeah.
So Madison ended up coming home.
Mm.
She ended up staying here in the valley with my other daughter Tori with her dad. They were very close. Tori's dad and I were together for probably close to 10 years, and
Mhm.
Madison had an amazing relationship with him, and she
Mhm.
called him dad.
Mhm.
So she came back, and Troy said she can stay here with us, and we'll just do the best we can to get her on the straight and narrow. So he found her a job. She had a great job working at a private home that looked after elderly ladies with an early onset of dementia and Alzheimer's. And Madison loved children, and Madison loved old people.
Aw.
So to me, I was overjoyed when I found out she was working there.
Mm.
She had dropped out of school in Yarmouth, so she went to adult high here and she ended up getting her GED. And it
Wow.
just seemed like she was really getting her life back on track.
Yeah.
Then she started hanging around with some girls that I didn't really approve of her hanging with. I
Mm.
do think she was trying to get some of them to go back to Halifax or go back to Grand Prairie rather from Halifax.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know if Madison was just allowed to come home. I don't know if
Mm.
Madison got away from these people and
Right.
just decided to come home for a while. I can't figure
Right.
any of that out.
Right.
But just as soon as she came home and started to
Uh,
get her life together, then
mm,
she was gone again.
huh.
And she didn't have a passport. She didn't have like any legitimate ID. So she had to just take the bus. So she left Halifax and I found out she was in Moncton. And when they're not actively like working, they're stripping. And
Mm,
she was dancing in Moncton. And then I know she was
mm,
in Brampton, she was in Mississauga,
mm,
she was in Toronto.
mm,
And she was keeping in touch with me, but I
mm,
again had to pretend that I was happy or not happy, but just okay with what she was doing. So she would keep in touch with me. She would always want to see Callie, FaceTime and so on and
mhm,
so forth.
mhm,
Um, so
mhm,
I thought she was doing okay. The
mm,
Christmas of 2014, she actually went missing. I knew she was in
mm,
Ontario somewhere, but I just
mm,
didn't know where.
mm.
And I that was, I think, the beginning of my bad experiences with the authorities with respect to them not helping me. Like Peel Regional Police told me that they couldn't, do anything. Where does she live? If she doesn't have a fixed address, we can't do a wellness check. I said, okay, well, she's being prostituted. How about you look her up on her ad? You set up a date with her, then arrest her, and I'll come pick her up.
Yeah.
Well, no, well, what's her address? I said, she doesn't have one. Well, we can't help you. Okay, well, then how about I'm just going to report her as a missing person? Same thing, just door after door
Mm.
slammed in my face.
Wow.
So I don't know where she was. I suspect she'd probably been beaten. That's just a guess. I
Mm,
suspect she was probably in a hospital
mm,
somewhere.
mm,
Um, in probably, I guess it was June 8, I think June 18th of 2015 was the last time I really had any kind of conversation with Madison. And at that time, I was just pissed off. I was mad. I was upset. I didn't understand how she couldn't get her shit together. So I just
mm,
tough loved her and I laid it out. And she didn't
mm,
like that. And she shut
mm.
me down.
Oh,
Wouldn't
that's
talk to me, wasn't calling me.
mm,
um in July, my partner and I had a trailer at a campground about an hour away from where we lived, and my relationship was pretty much shot by that time, but we decided to go to the trailer and spend the weekend with some really good friends, maybe try to rekindle us, I don't know. And
mm,
I was cooking breakfast in the morning. It was a Wednesday morning, and Tori was at home and was supposed to spend the night with some of her friends. And she texted me Tuesday night and said, I'm going to stay home because my friends are being tools, she said,
mm,
and I'm not going to hang out with them tonight. And I was like, okay. We lived a kilometer in the woods on a lake in the middle of nowhere, and it was not a fun place to be if you were by yourself. It was
mm,
scary back
mm,
there. And so I said, leave all the lights on in the kitchen, make sure the doors are locked, call me if you need anything, I'll be here. So at 10:30 the next morning, I was in the trailer making breakfast, and she must have called my phone and I didn't answer it for whatever the reason, didn't have it. So she called my partner's phone and he answered, and he would always tease her when he saw her name on the phone, and he would answer in this joking manner like he was pretending to be me. And then all of a sudden he just pointed the phone at me and he said, I cannot understand what she's saying and you need to take this phone. And so I couldn't understand. She was hyperventilating, she was
mm,
crying, she was hysterical.
mm.
And I had to holler at her to tell her to, I said, Tori, like, stop, like, what's going on? Just stop, talk normal. And so she got herself together and told me that a police officer had just come to the door and told her that Madison was in a car accident in Edmonton and that she didn't survive.
Oh,
She was only 16 years old at the time and she was home alone. So
oh,
when she called me and told me this, I was mortified.
mm,
Obviously, it just kind of hit me like I didn't really know how to handle it.
mm,
Um,